Okay, we have a lot to go through, so let's get started. This is eOne Solutions Office Hours, so we talk about different eOne products every month. Um, we follow the same agenda as we always have, where we're going to start by talking about our topic. Um, then there's an opportunity for you to ask any questions about that topic or something related, and then feel free to suggest anything that you'd like us to discuss at a future office hours session. So this week we're going to go over the SmartConnect 21 release. That's the most recent version of SmartConnect on-premise. So this is a huge release. Our dev team has worked very hard to get this ready and out the door. Um, so what's included in that? We've added some new features, took away some things that were just old legacy connections that we no longer use, and we've also paved the way to add a bunch of new things coming forward. So first of all, the exciting stuff, what is new? The whole user interface has changed. It'll be somewhat familiar, but it could take a little bit of relearning to find your way around. Um, all of the connectors now support multiple instances. So it used to be the dynamic CRM connector was only one you could have multiple instances of. Now you can have multiple GP connectors, multiple Business Central, Nav, whatever it is. You can add as many connectors as you want. The data sources are now broken out from the integration. So this is how we did it in smartconnect.com. So you can build one data source and use it for 10 maps if you want to. Also, maps are now called integration processes, again, just to align with smartconnect.com. Users are no longer linked to Active Directory. I know that there are some people on this call that have had issues with that in the past. The reason that we did this was now we are linking your users to the eOne account system. So the same account and password that you use for smartconnect.com can be used for SmartConnect on-premise and can be used for PopDoc. All of it's kind of in the same account system. So keep that in mind, but it basically is going to make things a lot simpler. You just enter an email address and a password and you're in. No longer do you have to deal with the complications of managing Active Directory alongside SmartConnect, especially in those multi-domain situations. And another highly requested feature that is now available is SmartConnect to 64-bit. So it's been 32-bit up to this point, which means that we sometimes run into memory limitations, but now your limitation is going to be your server. So if you keep throwing RAM on your server, SmartConnect can actually eat it up now. Before it would be limited. I don't foresee this being a major issue for your server. I've done record sets that have millions of column or millions of rows with about 25, 30 columns, and it barely made a dent on my machine at all. SmartConnect's heavily been optimized, so everything is much improved. What is gone? So as of right now, the ASMX web service is gone, the GP service-based architecture is gone, and the CRM4 connector. So all of these are things that we have been phasing people off of if they were using it. If for some reason you use these things, make sure you're aware you've transitioned to the newer options before expiring. I don't think we ended up having that many people using GP, SBA, or the CRM4 connector, but if you or your customer are using that, make sure you get them migrated to eConnect or a newer version of CRM before they attempt to do an upgrade when that becomes available. What is coming next? So I guess I didn't put it on this list, but the first thing that you're probably going to see is the migration path. So migration from SmartConnect 2018, you're going to have to go up to 2018 before you can make the jump to 21 because we can't make sure that we handle all table changes back for the last 10 years. But once you're on 2018, there's going to be an upgrade path, which is going to be a bit of a manual process. We can't automate everything, so some stuff is going to require user input. It's going to include a bunch of fancy scripts to move everything and convert everything into the new formats and handle our new database changes. So as part of this, it will include how to manage those existing users now that they're moving them off of Active Directory and into unified account management. They're going to most likely you'll have to supply additional information for each of those, because right now we don't require users to have an email or a password, which are the only two things that are going to be required moving forward. So at that point, there will be a process set in place. Our team is busy testing to figure out the best way of handling that, but this will all be managed through the upgrade process for existing customers. So why would you want to upgrade is probably today not going to really make sense. So you don't have a whole lot of incentive to upgrade. Obviously, new features, new bug fixes, and things like that are going to come to the more recent version. PopDoc and the new REST connector will probably be the next most exciting thing to come to the on-premise version. We still have the legacy REST connector, as we're calling it now, inside of PopDoc. Sorry, SmartConnect 21. But that connector had a lot of limitations, such as paging, OAuth, large data sets, complex JSON queries. The new connector, which is in smartconnect.com, has been wonderful. We have all the code ready for SmartConnect. It's just a matter of going through building all those forms and windows and making sure that it all flows nicely with the on-premise client, but we expect that to be coming very early next year. We also have two connectors, the NetSuite connector we currently already have in Online SmartConnect, and that'll be rolling down sometime in the new year. Both SmartConnect Online and SmartConnect On-Premise are going to be getting an FNO connector or FNSCM, whatever you prefer. So that'll be coming sometime later next year. I see we have a question. Authentication is no longer using Active Directory. Will everyone now need to register? So it doesn't involve going to the eOne website. What I'll do, and there's also a question about the slides. I can make sure the slides are available on the blog post when that goes out on Monday. If you want to look at the slides instead of listening to the whole recording again. I'm going to jump into SmartConnect and just show you, visualize a bit how this is going to work. So when you install SmartConnect, it's slightly different process. We have it all documented on how to do it. But before you can actually use SmartConnect, you have to run a config application. So when I run this, so let's talk about it from the perspective of a new customer today. So let's say I went to the eOne website, I purchased an account. I go in here, after you purchase the account, you'll be given a customer ID. And then it'll also prompt you to create one user. So you create that first user on our website. So I could create Ethan Sorensen, I'm a new user, and I'll be the only one on the account at this time. So when I add in this ID, it will pull a list of all of the servers that it's installed on. So this is the one that our whole tech team uses, so it has a lot of servers. Typically, you'd only have the 4 that you're allowed to have at most. When you create a new instance, so in here, when I'm going to create a new one, I basically point it to my SQL server locally. I would test the connection, obviously, tell it where the SmartConnect database is going to be, and then here I can decide whether to use a new user or an existing user. You don't have to go into the eOne website to add more users at a later point. The config application will walk you through creating that first user, but generally you would just use whoever went and retrieved the keys from the website and created a user that way. Once that's done, we can launch SmartConnect. So at this time, you'll only have one user in your database. So I'm just going to say use my user. eOne Solutions. Password changed. Come on. There we go. All right. So now I'm going to log in. Like I said, it's email password. It doesn't really require anything too fancy. You use that first user to log in, and then the same way you could with the old version, you can add users inside the application. One thing to note while this is loading is I did mention briefly that SmartConnect is now 64-bit, which means when you upgrade an existing user, when that becomes available, if they have any connections like ODBC connections, Excel sources, things like that, they're going to need to update all of their drivers to 64-bit at that time. But that will most likely be in the migration from 2018 to 21 documentation, but just something to keep in mind is you will be installing new drivers when that time comes. So in here, if I just go to security, because we're on that topic, if I click create, I can add in a new user like this, give them an email, a password, and name, all of that stuff. Then you can give them access to your different connectors and maps and integration groups. So navigation works along the top here. First, you build your connections so you can add connections in here. Unless you have a perpetual license, you're going to be billed based on the number of connections you configure in here. So there is a way to see that. I just don't remember. Yeah, so up here you can see, because this is an internal one, I can set up to 50 connectors, but normally your amount will be something like 4 that you can do. Now everything that you connect to is going to cost you one of those connections. So your account manager can go into more detail if you have any questions after this, but any file that you connect to or folder, once you've done at least one file or folder as a source or a destination, that will now become available as a connection, and you can create as many file connections as you want. Each database that you connect to, so I have an ODBC connection to a database, I have a SQL connection to a database. Those are essentially what used to be my MS SQL defaults or ODBC defaults. Those are now costing me a connection because you can use those as data sources and destinations. I have my CRM connector, Business Central, anything else like that, but I could add another of any of these. So this opens up so that I can add a new connection in here. So like I said, there are a couple that went away, but for the most part, the GP one looks almost exactly the same. Once you've set that up, we create our data sources. So in here, I can create a data source to anything. So yeah, a file or pretty much anything that you want. So I could say pull in items from Business Central. So we now have the ability to manage change data sources in that. So if you have anyone using Business Central on-premise or online with SmartConnect, you can now do change data sources with the on-premise version too. And then I can see any linked maps that I have to it, any linked integrations. So once you've created those, you can go to your integration tab, and let's open up the integration process. So should look pretty much the same from this standpoint. I just no longer can define my data source in here. I can preview it, but I can't actually modify that record. The destination, export to file. We have more options now in your export to file. So you can do a little bit more with it, selecting your encoding, using custom separators, things like that. The mapping window looks identical to how it used to look. Nothing has changed here. And then you can still add all of your tasks the same way you did before. So looks pretty much the same, acts pretty much the same, but yeah. That is the new version of SmartConnect. If there's anything that you didn't find in those main settings, they're just on this file tab up here. So this is where I can add custom script namespaces, um, node maintenance, look at my legacy REST connector, um, find any of my logs. So I could pull up any of my event logs and do that right from this interface. So the eOne sandbox has not been updated yet. I don't know when the ETA is on that because right now we're kind of, yeah, I think the correct answer would be to have two, but right now we, don't really want to take away that resource for all of the existing customers because so much has changed. And anything that you build in one, you can't import to another. So if I went into the import to import a map, second, it only accepts zip or JSON files, neither of which is how the old version would import export. So like because of this incompatibility between versions, we aren't updating quite yet. So we may build a new sandbox. I'm not sure where that's at yet. If anyone's working on it right now, it will be updated at some point. I just don't know how soon. But anyone with a partner license can use their NFR license to install it on your own if you'd like to take a look at it, play around with it before using it for a customer. But we do recommend that all new on-premise customers would use this new version because, yeah, at some point you're going to have to upgrade anyway to get new features. So features and bug fixes will essentially not be supporting the 2018 version because there will be the expectation that everyone just uses the newest thing that has everything in it. Um, any training? There's a question if there's going to be any training. I'm assuming you're asking about the new version of SmartConnect on premise. Because, yeah, so we do training right now. The majority of our training is with the online product. We do have some on-premise training, but we haven't optimized or modified that training for the new version of SmartConnect. I think your best option is to get some one-on-one training if there's something that you want help with. Otherwise, I think it's close enough. And if you're familiar with our existing product, I think you should feel comfortable enough to just install it somewhere locally, play around with it. Worst case scenario, you could always install it in our eOne sandbox and play around with it for 8 hours. All right, so we had some good questions. The 2021 training is available on our website through June. I think we've locked down dates and times now. So if you have anything that you're interested in to learn more about, that is out there. We are heavily focused in the smartconnect.com arena, but I would expect to be seeing some of these revamped trainings for the on-premise version now that it's available. So we might be offering more of that depending on the interest from our partners. Yeah, so I haven't updated the schedule slide yet, but if you have any topic suggestions, let us know at officehours@eOne Solutions. We have a number of resources that are available to you, so if you are stuck or you have any questions, feel free to reach out to our sales support professional services. We're here to help you. You can contact us at these email addresses. All right, I don't see any more questions, so I think we'll call it good for today. I'll make sure I upload these, upload this slide deck on Monday along with the recording, so you can reference that if you need it. All right, thank you everyone, and have a great weekend.